So, see, he's been around a long-ass time. But he came into his own over the last few years, which kind of makes sense. Like, he figured it out somewhere around 27, 28. But he comes, look, these guys are elite, right? They come close to beating him, but he finds a way to beat them. And the way he does it is so final. The way he beat Poirier, man, that choke was so fucking good. It was so good. Yeah. And that's the same way the world found out about him was Efrain Escudero, who won the Ultimate Fighter. So, who was a very good fighter himself. He fought Oliveira, and Oliveira took his back same way, standing up, and choked him out. And that's when we first saw him. And the first time I recognized him, like, man, this kid is talented. But then it was like, his jiu-jitsu is...
When two fan favorites step into the cage with everything on the line, it stops being just another fight night and starts feeling like a collision course with destiny. Charles Oliveira didn't just make a prediction before facing Max Holloway. He sent a warning shot through the division, a cold reminder that he needs only a heartbeat, a blink, a single reckless exchange to flip a fight upside down and drag it into chaos. One mistake, one overextension, and the momentum shifts without mercy. The stakes aren't subtle, they are suffocating. Analysts can't agree on how this ends. Some are convinced Holloway's relentless pace, surgical striking, and impossible durability will drown Oliveira in deep waters, breaking him round by round. Others see a darker possibility unfolding, whispering that against a finisher as opportunistic as Oliveira, dominance means nothing if you leave even the smallest opening, because that's all it takes. A fraction of hesitation, a scramble that lasts half a second too long, and suddenly the crowd is stunned, the tide violently turned, the favorite unraveling under pressure he never saw coming. This isn't about points or pride, it's about who survives the storm when everything swings at once. So the question isn't who looks better on paper, it's who blinks first when the trap snaps shut. Let's break it all down.
Last thing, you're the original BMF. And when people think bad they think Nate Diaz. Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, who you got in that one? They're fighting March 7th.
I like Max.
You like Max?
Yeah, I'll stop the
fans want to see you on the White House card. Are you going to be on the White House card?
That was weird what I said, but I'll him up. Yeah, the White House would be perfect.
You're the man, bro. Thank you.
Looking back at his first clash with Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira insists that the man who stepped into the cage that night barely resembles the force preparing to face him now. He doesn't just call it growth, he calls it a rebirth. Back then, he says, he was young, raw, battered by injuries, carrying inexperience like extra weight on his shoulders when he stood across from Holloway for the first time. That version of him hesitated, that version cracked, and he refuses to let that ghost define what happens next. He admits Holloway hasn't stood still either, evolving into a sharper, more seasoned threat and now carrying the symbolic edge of the BMF champion. But Oliveira's tone shifts when he speaks about his own transformation. What once was a dangerous jiu-jitsu specialist lurking for submissions has hardened into something far more complete, an unforgiving mixed martial artist who can strike, pressure, scramble, and finish from anywhere. He warns that this isn't a sequel, not a rerun of unfinished business. It's a different battlefield entirely, with different weapons and a far more ruthless mindset guiding him. The past, he suggests, is irrelevant. That fight belongs to a younger, fractured version of himself. This time, he claims, the story won't echo history, it will rewrite it, and the man standing at the center of it is far more dangerous than the one Holloway once met.
Aquela última luta para essa, eu evolui demais. Naquela luta eu entrei com a lesão.
Like an injury to the shoulder of Charles Oliveira. Anticlimactic, but Max Holloway.
É um Charles completamente diferente, igual eu falei, eu sei que ele evoluiu, eu sei que ele cresceu, é o campeão BMF, porém o Charles de hoje é um Charles completamente diferente. Naquela época eu era só o Charles do Jiu-Jitsu, eu sou o Charles do MMA, eu sou um cara completo. Naquela época eu era só um menino, sabe, igual eu falei, hoje eu sou um leão no meio dos leões. Então é completamente diferente uma luta da outra.
Max Holloway, however, isn't feeding the emotion or the noise swirling around him. He's approaching this storm with a cold, measured focus that feels almost surgical. While others talk about redemption and reinvention, he talks about discipline. For him, the answer isn't rage, it's precision. He makes it clear that the key is to fight smart, to lock into the game plan and refuse to drift from it no matter what chaos unfolds in front of him. No reckless exchanges, no ego-driven gambles, just calculated violence executed at the right moment. He says he'll do whatever it takes to make sure his hand is the one raised when it's over, whether that means dragging the fight deep into exhausting waters or detonating early with pace and pressure. With only 4 weeks left in camp, Holloway claims his body is exactly where it needs to be, sharp, conditioned, relentless. But he doesn't pretend it's easy. He's right in the center of the most punishing stretch of preparation, the phase in MMA and jiu-jitsu where intensity stops building gradually and instead spikes without warning. This is the grind where lungs burn, muscles scream, and weaknesses are exposed under unforgiving rounds. It's the stretch that breaks fight fighters who aren't fully committed. Holloway insists is thriving in it, embracing the brutality, sharpening his weapons while the pressure climbs. Clear mind, focused approach, no distractions, just the countdown ticking louder with every session.
Week 2 is going good. It's going good, period, but it's going good, especially considering the fact that Max coming off that hand injury. So we had to basically just kind of enter camp, you know what I mean, and ramp up. And so Max is just like straight into the fire, you know what I mean? So everything's been kind of 100 miles an hour, full speed ahead. The fire is very, very hot, but so far he's handling.
Building on that mindset, Max Holloway doesn't dismiss Charles Oliveira for a second. He studies him. He openly acknowledges Oliveira as a real threat in every inch of the cage, warning that the danger doesn't start on the ground like many assume. Holloway points out that a lot of Oliveira's finishes are born from sharp, punishing damage on the feet, calculated strikes that force desperation before he flows into submissions with precision rather than diving recklessly for them. It's a trap layered in stages, hurt you standing, pressure you in transition, then close the door when you're scrambling. Holloway admits that Oliveira has outgrown the old label of being just a jiu-jitsu ace, evolving into a complete mixed martial artist who can hurt you with his hands, knees, and elbows just as easily as he can choke the life out of a fight on the mat. The threat is real, and Holloway doesn't sugarcoat it. But respect, he makes clear, is not hesitation. Acknowledging danger doesn't alter the objective when the cage door shuts. For Holloway, admiration stays in interviews, execution happens under the lights. Fight night isn't about narratives or reputations, it's about choices made in split seconds. It's about staying disciplined when chaos tempts you to brawl, about sticking to the blueprint when instincts scream otherwise, and about proving every calculated decision where it matters most, inside the cage, when there's nowhere left to hide.
A break, so I mainly rely on Max to let me know how he's feeling.
What is this? 3, yeah?
This is the 3rd.
Right now in camp, I feel great, man. There's so much science. I have transparent labs now, keeping my body top shape, taking the right supplements, sleeping well.
I do a bunch, he says, and then the conversation shifts to Chael Sonnen, who reflects on his earliest impressions of Charles Oliveira with unexpected honesty. Sonnen admits he didn't always see a future all-time great in the making. He remembers sharing a card years ago, watching a young Oliveira, then branded almost exclusively as a submission hunter, get stopped by Jim Miller via knee bar. That image stuck with him. It shaped his first judgment, carved in a moment where potential seemed fragile and ceilings felt visible. But what unsettles Sonnen now isn't that early loss, it's everything that followed. The transformation, the layers added, the resilience forged in setbacks that might have stalled someone else permanently. He points out that when a figure like Daniel Cormier casually includes Oliveira in conversations about the sport's elite, it isn't hype, it's recognition earned the hard way. For Sonnen, the story isn't just about stacked victories or championship gold. It's about evolution at a stage where most fighters level off, where improvement slows and hunger fades. Oliveira, in his view, did the opposite. He accelerated. He sharpened tools people thought were already defined. He rewrote the expectations placed on him. And that, Sonnen suggests, is the rarest trait in combat sports. Not talent, not power, but the relentless ability to keep expanding when everyone else settles, redefining in real time what true growth inside this unforgiving arena is supposed to look like.
I'm one of the detractors to Charles Oliveira. I fought on a card with Charles. He was an undercard to a young man named Jim Miller. Charles, this submission ace, which is what we heard about because we weren't overly familiar. He was a young boy, I want to say 24 years old. Got submitted in a straight knee bar by Jim Miller. I mean, I'm just sharing for you, like, I still have these memories. To look at Charles for what he is, which you're arguing now one of the greats ever, whether he is or not, the fact that Daniel Cormier suggested on ESPN that he might be, proves your point. And to watch him get better with time, are you telling me 2 years from now, there's a chance this guy is better than he is today? That's just not the way the game is played, and that is the...
Offering a sharper, almost unsettling angle on the debate, Daniel Cormier argues that legacies in this sport are often shaped less by triumphs and more by the moments everything falls apart. Fans remember the crack, not the climb. He brings up Anderson Silva as the perfect example. During his reign, he felt untouchable, untamed, operating on a level that made challengers look helpless. The aura was suffocating. But time is undefeated. As age crept in and losses began stacking, that once mythic presence dimmed, and suddenly the narrative narrative shifted from dominance to decline. In the case of Charles Oliveira, Cormier insists the timeline runs in reverse. The timeline is flipped, he emphasizes. Oliveira's setbacks didn't arrive at the end. They came early, when he was young, raw, and still assembling the pieces of who he would become. In the UFC, early turbulence is almost a rite of passage, a brutal education disguised as failure. If those struggles are part of the forging process, Cormier suggests, then what makes Oliveira different is what followed. His prime hasn't been haunted by collapse, it's been defined by escalation. Instead of fading under brighter lights, his intensified. Instead of plateauing, he surged. The losses didn't rewrite his ceiling, they recalibrated it. And now, when the stakes are highest, it's not a fighter protecting an old aura. It's a veteran who already survived the fall, thriving where others begin to unravel.
That is so inspiring.
Well, for me, it's like this, right? So people get judged on losses more than wins, right? No matter what you do. Because there was a time, Chill, when Anderson Silva was rolling that I never thought for a second anyone would ever be considered better at this sport than Anderson Silva had done MMA. But then as he got older, obviously he starts to lose fights. The shine kind of comes off of him. And Oliveira, that's in reverse, right? He was young when he was taking his losses. So are you judged harsher for losing late, which is expected, or losing early, which is expected, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're young in the UFC, as young as Oliveira started, you should hit some bumps in the road. When you're older, when Anderson's 40 and he's still fighting in the UFC, you should be losing to guys on the way out. So how do we base this decision? Because if we say the young and experienced guy is supposed to lose at that point, then all we have seen Oliveira do as a man is fight at the highest level and find success.
Moreover, when it comes to opinions that actually carry edge, Nate Diaz isn't known for handing out praise like souvenirs. Compliments from him are rare, almost suspicious. But when the spotlight turned to the upcoming BMF title clash between Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira, Diaz didn't pause, didn't hedge, didn't play both sides. Forget the noise, forget the breakdowns, his backing maximum. That street-forged stamp of approval lands differently because it isn't polished or promotional, it's instinctive. Diaz sees something in Holloway's pace, his grit, his willingness to stand in the fire, and that recognition adds a raw layer to an already volatile matchup. With the March 7th collision looming, the energy around this fight feels less like hype and more like a fuse burning shorter by the day. The BMF label isn't just a belt, it's a claim to identity, to who owns the chaos when fists start flying. And now, with Diaz publicly choosing a side, the stakes feel more personal, more charged. The debate over who truly deserves to wear the baddest crown isn't simmering anymore, it's boiling. Lines are being drawn, allegiances are forming, and when that cage door finally shuts, it won't just be about skill or legacy. It'll be about proving, in the most unforgiving way possible, who really embodies that title when the pressure peaks.
You're the original BMF. And when people think bad they think Nate Diaz. Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, who you got in that one? They're fighting March 7th.
I like Max.
You like Max?
Yeah, I'll stop the
fans want to see you on the White House card. Are you going to be on the White House card?
That was weird what I said, but I'll him up. Yeah, the White House would be perfect.
You're the man, bro. Thank you.
However, MMA Guru throws his weight behind Charles Oliveira, highlighting a transformation in the art that often decides fights before fists even meet. Gone are the chaotic dives for back takes, the desperate trips that once defined his approach. Now, Oliveira's wrestling is precise, brutal in its efficiency. He drives deep to the hips, secures grips like a predator locking in on prey, and leveraged raw lifting power to dominate opponents before they can even react. Guru recalls sequences against elite competition where Oliveira showcased unexpected strength in clinches and double underhook positions, maneuvers that weren't part of his arsenal in earlier years. These aren't just tweaks, they are upgrades, a shift from opportunistic grappler to methodical force capable of controlling the flow before the fight's rhythm emerges. With cleaner entries, tighter control, and that lethal mix of timing and power, Guru suggests Oliveira could dictate the narrative immediately, forcing Holloway onto the defensive before he's fully settled. Early takedowns, immediate submission threats, and a cage presence that corners his adversary psychologically as well as physically. This is the new Oliveira, and the implication is clear. If Holloway underestimates this evolved version, the fight may never reach its intended pace. Guru paints a picture of a match where the predator strikes first, and the hunter is forced to survive before even thinking to strike back, flipping expectation into a potential nightmare for Holloway.
Max versus Charles go. I'll go Oliveira, chat. Who else is very impressed with his takedown entries that he's added to his game? Even when he went for it on Ilya and went for the 50-50 throw, I was like, oh my God, dude, he's strong in this double under position. He's never been like that before. He always used to shoot in and try and get the back from it and failed a takedown. Like, he was never picking up Gaethje and dunking him or getting his hands behind the arse of Poirier and getting his hands connected and dunking him down. It was very throw and trip oriented, but he's now like getting in on the hips, hands connected, picking him up. Picking up Gamrot like that, even though Gamrot balanced and stayed in a good position and then eventually gave up his back anyway. His entries are a lot better. So I think he would get down Max in sub.
Building on all of that, when the spotlight turns to Max Holloway, American MMA fighter, versus Charles Oliveira at UFC 326, Michael Chandler doesn't hide his leanings. He's putting his chips on Holloway, expecting him to take the win, especially considering Oliveira is stepping back into camp fresh off a heavy knockout, a short turnaround that could tilt the edge. Chandler envisions the BMF belt finding its way to Holloway's hands if the night unfolds as predicted, but is careful not to dismiss the cage's inherent chaos. March 7, he acknowledges, could easily rewrite every expectation in an instant. That unpredictability, the split-second decisions, the one punch that changes everything, remains a wild card no fighter can fully control. Still, Chandler sees Holloway's combination of speed, endurance, and strategic discipline as the defining edge, capable of navigating the storm Oliveira might unleash. Yet even as he picks a favorite, there's a thrill in the uncertainty, a recognition that MMA rarely bends to predictions alone. Every takedown, every scramble, every swing has the potential to shock, to flip momentum in ways only the fight itself can reveal. No matter how analyses stack up, no matter how prepared the warriors are, the bout is shaping up to be more than a contest. It's a confrontation destined to etch itself into memory, a battle where legacies are tested, crowns contested, and one night may decide more than just a title. It may redefine how greatness is measured inside the cage.
Versus Oliveira at UFC 326. Who do you think leaves with that BMF belt?
I got my eye on that one, man. I think Max gets the win. I think Oliveira is coming off of a pretty devastating knockout and turned around real quick, jumped into another training camp, and I got my eyes set on that BMF belt if Max wins, so we'll see.
And as Travis Herrick points out, Charles Oliveira isn't merely another name in the lightweight division. He's a force etched into the sport's history, a contender whose skill and evolution mark him as one of the very best of all time. Even stepping up 10 pounds, he molds perfectly into the division, blending seasoned experience with a toolkit designed to punish and finish. On the feet, Oliveira stalks his opponents relentlessly, striking with intent, precision, and aggression that leaves little room for recovery. On the ground, he becomes something entirely different, a submission architect capable of ending fights from nearly any position, layering elbows, knees, clinch control, and an elite ground game that suffocates resistance. It's not just technique, it's anticipation, calculation, and instinct coalescing into one seamless, lethal package. Herrick warns that anyone underestimating him on March 7th risks a harsh, immediate lesson in what mastery looks like in combat sports. This isn't merely a matchup to watch, it's a full display of dominance, a masterclass in the elements that define a true BMF. Every strike, every transition, every hold is a statement, and Oliveira carries it all with the confidence of someone who's not just competing but redefining standards. When that cage door shuts, the spectacle won't be about the usual stats or narratives. It will be about witnessing a fighter at the apex of his craft, proving why he belongs among the elite, and why underestimating him could be the most costly mistake any challenger makes.
This is one of the best lightweights of all time, 10 pounds heavier in the weight class, but now Max has moved up, but Charles will be more used to the weight class. He is a couple of years older than Max Holloway, but Charles Oliveira, what is his style? Well, he has the most submissions in UFC history, but that doesn't mean he's a slouch with the striking. No, Charles is very aggressive on the feet. He likes to walk people down, get them knocked down, and then submit them. I mean, think about the Michael Chandler fight when he's knocking them down. Charles is a very powerful striker. Wide arsenal of moves. He can kick, he can punch, he can elbow, knee. He really can do it all. He has a great clinch game and even better ground game with his submission threats. He could submit you from any.
While Charles Oliveira possesses every tool to dominate, Travis Herrick still leans toward Max Holloway holding a subtle edge. Herrick envisions Max claiming victory either by TKO or decision, relying on his relentless striking power and ironclad durability at 155 pounds. Historically, he notes, Oliveira tends to favor staying on his feet rather than forcing the fight to the mat, a tendency that could play directly into Holloway's hands as each strike accumulates, chip by chip, round by round. With elite takedown defense, Holloway is well equipped to neutralize Oliveira's ground threats while methodically wearing him down, turning the cage into a crucible where stamina and precision matter most. Yet even with Max's advantages, the door isn't closed for Oliveira. He has repeatedly demonstrated, against opponents like Matthias Gamer, that he can dismantle even the most formidable wrestlers, lending timing, technique, and unpredictability into a weapon capable of shocking any favorite. March 7, then, is shaping into more than just a bout. It's a collision of strategy, skill, and sheer endurance, where every exchange carries weight and every decision could shift shift momentum instantly. The BMF title hangs in balance, awaiting the fighter who can master not only their strengths but the pressure, the pace, and the unforgiving crucible that only a cage this fierce can deliver.
Prediction right now, I think Max Holloway wins either by a TKO or by decision. I do think this fight, given how Charles fights in his history, is going to stay on the feet, similar to how the Ilya one did. And I think that Max will get the TKO eventually or a decision win. But I could see these strikes adding up over the rounds. Max has some pop and strength on him at 155. And with Charles being chinny, I think Max eventually catches him and puts him out. Max himself has really good takedown defense, so he could defend a lot of these takedowns from Charles and eventually just overwhelm him and get this TKO win. Max has a great chin, and I don't think that Charles can find that button and knock him out how Ilia Topuria could, but we will see when that fight takes place. Now, I will say there is a very real chance for Charles Oliveira to win this. We just saw him dominate Mateusz Gamrot with the wrestling. Why couldn't he do the same to Max Holloway? Gamrot, you could ask anybody, is a better wrestler than Max Holloway. And even though Max Holloway has great takedown defense, if Charles could do that to Gamrot, Charles can do that to Holloway. It's just a question.
So, who emerges victorious in this epic rematch between Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway for the BMF title? Will it be Oliveira's evolved wrestling, ruthless submissions, an all-encompassing ground game, or Holloway's precise striking, ironclad durability, and hard-earned championship experience that carry him through? The cage is set, the stakes are monumental, and every second could swing momentum in a heartbeat. Drop your predictions in the comments below. We want to see who you believe will seize the crown when the dust settles. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another fight breakdown, prediction, or the latest pulse-pounding UFC action. This isn't just another showdown, it's a collision of styles, a battle of wills, and a test of who truly deserves the title of BMF, who has the strategy, skill, and heart to dominate when it matters most. The answers start on March 7, and your voice matters in the conversation leading up to it.